My guest Heidi's avoidant husband left her feeling alone and broken. He was emotionally distant to her, no matter how much she begged. But when she learned a few new skills, she got a much better response. And now her husband is incredibly affectionate. He's emotionally available, and she feels so connected to him. She's going to tell us how she did it, so you can do it too. Heidi, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Laura. I'm so honored to be here. I'm just really excited because this is a huge milestone for me. Ever since I started listening 3 years ago, I dreamt that I would be on this podcast with you.
And now you're living your dream come true. Here you are.
Yes.
So exciting. This is a victory lap you're taking right now.
Yes.
So excited. Okay, well, I want to hear the whole story. So let's go back to the beginning when things were going badly in the bad old days. What was happening?
Yeah. Wow. It's a sad time to go back there. So I've been married for 17 years. And so when I started dating my husband, he and I just caught on like a house on fire. We connected straight away, and there was a lot of chemistry. We just, enjoyed each other's company so much. We would talk into all hours of the night. We lived sort of further away from each other. So, we would travel to each other and date. And it was just beautiful, this beautiful connection. I felt so loved for the first time ever dating someone. I just felt deeply loved and deeply seen. And he felt the same way. And so it was a quick sort of whirlwind. We were married a year after we started dating. And we just knew we wanted to be together for the rest of our lives. But during the dating season, we already started to sort of come up against some challenges. I discovered that he had a porn addiction, actually. And I was this like sheltered Christian girl who just thought that was like the worst thing ever. I was shattered, actually. My confidence was shattered. And, he said he had dealt with it and we kind of moved on, and I just trusted him that, that was dealt with. And I really struggled though to feel, like this man who was my perfect man, suddenly there was this like darkness about everything. I just felt icky about it all and sad. And, I just didn't have any tools around navigating that. And then we get married, and our honeymoon is just such a weird experience. Immediately after our wedding, I felt like he changed and he was just this different person. And it almost felt like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders once, everything was said and done. And we were locked into this marriage, and I felt deeply rejected. Like, does he regret marrying me? Like, what is going on? It was actually really devastating. Our honeymoon was sort of like a lot of tears, a lot of fighting, me begging him to, be warm toward me. And it was just, it was really scary, actually.
I done. You're already wondering if you made a mistake.
Well, I was madly obsessed and in love with this man. I was freaking out that he was thinking that he had made a mistake. So all of the fear was around me feeling like he's regretting this decision. He doesn't really love me. And I already had a relationship with deep wounds and insecurities around not being worthy and just feeling like I'm not measuring up. But when I found him, I felt like I did measure up. And so now all this insecurity was just popping up, like not popping up, but like taking over.
Yeah.
And then I found out, I think maybe 6 months into our marriage, or maybe a year later, that he was still looking at porn. And I was just like, what's going on? This was my dream man. And I just feel like I'm not enough. Like, I think the porn thing for me back then, I didn't have access to understand what was going on for him. All I felt was that he doesn't desire me. I'm not enough for him. And so that was horrible. I came into the marriage with an eating disorder. I was like recovering from an eating disorder. So you can just imagine those two things like butting heads. I just felt deeply wounded and rejected. And so we're fumbling through that time. Like that time was so hard. I honestly, like, what do you even do? I didn't have any mentor to walk me through something like that. Chad did have a mentor that he eventually found and was able to like work through some stuff for himself. But I became my husband's accountability partner. I became ridiculously controlling because it was all his fault. It was like, you've wounded me and now I have to like basically be your mother and I have to tell you what you can and can't do. I have to tell you, you know, what the boundaries are, the ultimatums, the devices, like they had to have locks or passwords on them, and he, like, we set up this program where if he looked at something online, I would immediately get an email, and I set up it actually makes me laugh now. I haven't thought about this in a long time. But I set up like a weekly meeting with him where it's like, you're going to check in with me and tell me how you're going. Because I was so scared. I was so scared that I wasn't enough, that I was, you know, that he was just going to continue to reject me. And I remember I would make advances. I would initiate and he would just shut me down. And this story was growing in my head. Like, what do I have to do to get this man to come back to me and love me the way he did when we were dating, and to want to actually engage in physical intimacy with me? It felt like such a challenge. And that was actually the biggest feeling that overwhelmed me around that was humiliation. I felt so humiliated. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
like the worst feeling. Like
Yes.
not just rejected, but yeah, so embarrassed too, humiliated.
Yeah. Putting myself out there and just being rejected. I remember putting lingerie one time and he laughed at me and I just thought,
Oh,
like, I'm so humiliated. Why am I putting myself out there? So I kept trying, but, you know, eventually I just sort of shut down and I went numb in that area. There were still things were still great in amongst this sort of devastation. Like, we had great moments, great times. We still had a great connection when things were good, but the fights just got more frequent. My emotional state was just, I was constantly distraught, constantly, like it just grew. This emotional turmoil just kept growing for me. And I just didn't know how, I just didn't have access to tools around just navigating my own emotional turmoil. And I would freak out every time we were out and about and there was a billboard or we were at the beach and, you know, I saw him glance at someone and I was just I was hyper vigilant, constantly searching for, you know, the what ifs. And then fast forward and we have children, and my first child, actually, I felt really fulfilled as a mom. And so I think it took a little pressure off our relationship, even though sometimes having kids puts pressure on. I think I found some confidence in myself when I had a baby, and I suddenly felt like, oh, I'm in my element, you know. And I was a graphic designer at the time, and I just started out my own business, you know, when I was pregnant with her. And so I just felt like I was coming into my own. I was excited about the future. We were living in Sydney under the Harbour Bridge in this beautiful little town. And life was actually pretty sweet in that season. And I just felt like I was a great mom when I actually had my daughter. I was thriving, and she was an easy baby, but I thought it was because I was just such a great mom. And, you know, I was like, I've got this, you know. And then I had my second child 3.5 years later, and it just kind of all crumbled. I thought I was this great mum, and suddenly I just didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't make this baby happy. He was unsettled all the time. He had some issues, and I just couldn't figure it out. I struggled with postpartum depression. I did with my first as well, but I mean, I didn't realize it. So there was all these things that were being kind of suppressed underneath. But then when I had my second, it kind of all blew up in my face. We then went through the most crazy season, like just one thing after another. My grandfather passed away, who I loved dearly. And then, excuse me, a couple of months later, my niece got diagnosed with cancer at age 4. My daughter was 3, and they were really close, like best friends. So she was 4. She got diagnosed with cancer. Then I found out that my nan had cancer, and she passed away soon after. She was married to my grandfather, who died. And so, like, I just didn't even have time to catch my breath. Just devastation started piling on. And I went into like fight or flight. I was already in fight or flight mode, but didn't realize it. But I went into this crazy survival fight or flight mode. And I just like lost myself in this devastation, but I disguised it. I showed up like this super faith-filled, helpful sister to my sister who was going through this. And I just poured all my energy into supporting and trying to fight this battle that my niece was, up against with cancer. And in the meantime, on the inside, I'm falling apart. My marriage is falling apart. I'm yelling at my kids. I'm rageaholic over here, like raging at my husband and my kids. I'm struggling to find peace. I'm in turmoil. I am breaking down. But I'm showing up strong for my sister, and nobody's realizing the turmoil, right? And then fast forward 4 years of a battle, up and down, highs and lows. We think she's in remission. It comes back, and then she passes away. And then we had already planned for a year. We were planning on leaving Australia and moving to America. So during that year, everything just happened. Like, my sweet niece passed away months before we were planning on leaving. And I had also decided to lay down my very successful graphic design business. I just felt like it was time to lay it down. So we were like leaving the country with a clean slate. We weren't taking anything other than bags of clothes and some books and toys. Like, we left everything behind. And then my niece dies, and it's like we've got a couple of months to finish everything, pack everything up, get everything sorted. And I'm just putting this massive ball of grief into a chest somewhere deep inside, locking it and just going, I can't think about that right now. I still hadn't even grieved my grandfather and my nan. I just couldn't fathom how to even begin to manage all of this. And then on top of that, my daughter was grieving, and I didn't know how to manage that. So we left. We came to America, and everything fell apart. Like, it was already a mess, but we came, and I was like, how are we going to survive? And my marriage was getting worse, and there just seemed to be no hope. And then there was this breakdown between me and my daughter, because I had not been present, and I had been so broken when I had my second child, and then all this stuff piling on that I I lost my relationship with her, my connection to her. And so there was the weight of all of these things on my shoulders. I just felt like I was failing, like on such a deep level. And all I wanted was to feel like my husband would, you know, help me carry that burden, but it felt like he was just getting further and further away. And I felt so alone. I felt so alone. And yeah.
So lonely, so sad.
Yeah. And so we managed to find a place to live here and start a new life. But it was honestly the journey for me. I just became acopic in a way. Suddenly I was like, I couldn't function. And all the yelling, all the demanding, the raging, the frustration, trying to like make something of my life. Suddenly I just became numb. And it was like, I was deeply depressed. I was anxious and I could barely function. And my health, I had dealt with chronic pain and chronic health issues already, but it just all sort of blew up in my face. Suddenly my health was the worst it had ever been. I actually found a course on connection around parenting because out of like sheer desperation, I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. I know that I'm not doing this the way I should be doing it. I know yelling at my kids isn't the answer. So I found this course online around connection, and it was like the first glimmer of hope that I had felt in a while. And I thought, wow, connection, like, where has this been all my life? What does this mean? Like, does this mean I can overhaul like my entire way of doing things and actually feel empowered and cultivate something that I want here rather than feeling like I'm constantly yelling and trying to make something happen and nothing happens? And I just felt hopeful. And so I kind of poured all my energy into that, into connecting with my kids, but my marriage was still, I don't know. I don't even know where, like it felt like it didn't exist. I felt like we had good moments still, but I just felt like we were both so numb and we weren't connecting. We could barely have a conversation. The fights were still there. We had tried therapy. We had tried all of these things, but slowly it was like we were becoming so numb we wouldn't even fight. We just we stopped kind of engaging for the most part. And it was just this like dance of managing what we had to manage and yeah, not really survival. So I was focused on the kids and trying to build connection with them, but I was failing. And then shame just was growing and I just thought, I can't even get this right. Like I finally found something that feels like it's gonna like, you know, turn some things around. But it wasn't working. It wasn't sticking, even though I knew the principles were right and it was what I wanted. And then, you know, fast forward another couple of years and, you know, my husband starts getting close to this other woman. I didn't know this. I didn't know she existed. Apparently she'd been in his life for a few months, maybe 8 months. Nothing happened. I can't call it an emotional affair, but when we talk about it, we say it was sort of, he was on the way toward an emotional affair with this person. And this whole time I had been like, part of my story was like, you don't know how to emotionally connect with me. You are so emotionally vacant. Like, I feel like I'm married to a robot. This is what I would say all the time. And he would say to me, I don't know how to make you happy. I don't know if I can be the man you want. I don't know who you think I'm supposed to be, but I just can't. I feel like I'm broken. I feel like I can't access these things that you want me to be. Like I don't know how to be more emotional for you. Kind of, that was his response. So when this happened, I suddenly had this thought like, oh, because I went to a party. She was there. She knew all about my kids. This is the first time I was meeting her, and I felt really awkward. Like, who is this person? And I just felt a sense like there's an attraction between her and my husband. Why does she know so much about my life? What is going on? And so the next day was my birthday, and he was being surprisingly sweet and sort of attentive. And it was like, what is going on? Like, where is this coming from? And then later that night, I made a comment about this woman, and he was like, what do you mean? And I just said, I think there's something going on. And he looked at me and he said, you're right. And my world just shattered into a million pieces. And, after some really good things happened in that moment. This was the catalyst. This was the first catalyst. There's a couple. But the first thing that happened is I freaked out and I spiraled. But then after that, we both kind of made the decision to reach out and ask for help. And so we reached out to somebody who was in our community, and they came over and they just sat with us. And we just described what had happened. And they said, look, you've been through a lot. You've done so much work. I think you guys are going to be okay. You're going to handle this differently this time. And that felt like really helpful for me. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to, because with the porn stuff, what I had learned as I had tried to heal and just figure that out for myself was that if I make it about me, then I'm trapped. Nothing productive is going to happen. But if I see it as a separate thing that he and I actually get to partner together and grow closer because of, and see it as more a wound for him. Like, this is just something that he has had to carry and struggle. It's a heavy burden. He didn't want a porn addiction. Like, his personal beliefs were around, honoring me in that way, not engaging in that. And so for him, to see it as this thing that this is a burden, I want to be empathetic, toward him and this struggle. I had learnt that, even though it was really hard, and I didn't necessarily live it out, but it was this concept that I knew was important. So I tried to adopt that in this situation and go, oh, maybe I can look at this differently, because I wanted to blame him and I wanted this moment to justify everything that I had ever blamed him for. And I was like, well, maybe I can look at this differently. And I decided okay, I'm going to see this. I'm going to separate myself out and see this not as something against me, but something that's going to be helpful for me to learn how to see him and his needs. And I don't know where I got that from. It felt like a miracle, but it just felt like I had some strength to gain some perspective. And so I decided that, I decided that I was going to do things differently, but then I realized, how do I do that? I don't have any access to how to even begin to do something differently. All I've known my whole life is just this way of being. But one thing that miraculously I tried was to be vulnerable without blaming him. And I remember one time I just went to him and I said, my heart hurts. And he came to me and gave me the biggest hug. And there was this deep feeling of connection that I had not felt in a long time. And I just thought, oh my gosh, what is happening? Something's shifting. But the biggest thing for me, the biggest, piece of wisdom, I guess, that I gained in this little season was that I've lost my train of thought.
You're doing great.
Yeah, it was such a momentous thing. And now I've forgotten it. But anyway,
Yeah, you responded. You decided instead of judging him
yeah,
being perverted or something because of the porn, you were going to view it with compassion, kind of like somebody might view an eating disorder.
yeah,
You mentioned that earlier, and
yes,
gave you, you were able to show up softer, it sounds like, and even vulnerably,
yeah,
where you, and you saw that where this man who you had called avoidant, you'd labeled him
yeah,
avoidant and emotionally distant, that when you said my heart hurts, and it wasn't about blaming him,
yeah.
that he came in like a cruise missile to
He
comfort.
did. He did. It was such an eye-opening moment for me, just realizing that he was still in there, like this man that I loved. And that's what I was going to say, is that I realized that the story in my head was that he couldn't connect emotionally. He just didn't have the capacity. But I realized in that moment he did, but it just wasn't with me. He was searching for this connection with this other woman, even though it had not really eventuated into anything. I could see that he was wanting that connection. She was this younger, bubbly, smiley, would just load on the compliments sort of person. And Laura, I took that moment. It was so hard. It was the hardest thing I think I've ever done. But I took that moment and I decided to look at myself in the mirror and sit with myself for the first time, probably in a really long time, and realize that, like, I had become this sad, empty shell, that I just was lost. And I was so far from myself, so far from the person who I wanted to be. I wasn't happy. I was complaining all the time. I was just devastated all the time. I was so negative all the time. And I think seeing who this person was and why my husband was attracted to her and drawn to her, and then looking at myself in the mirror and going, oh, this is like so hard to realize, but he is capable. He's just not getting he's not getting this connection from me. And look at the difference. Like, look at this version of me. No wonder, and I compared myself to her, and I'm like, no wonder, like, he's attracted to her. I am miserable. And it was devastating because I didn't have the tools to then, like, navigate that. And so that started eating away at me, and I felt so down. And then the emotional turmoil, like, it was just a rocky road. While I was trying to do things differently and be vulnerable and not blame him, I also blamed him and screamed at him and said, like, how dare you? And, like, I'm not enough for you. And I'm so devastated. There was just this roller coaster ride. And I was like, how do I do this? And I remember sitting down with a friend and sharing, and just in tears. And I was just telling her what happened. And I just said, I don't know what to do. I know there's a shift happening, but I just don't know how to sustain it. Like, I'm feeling like I want to do things differently, but I just don't know how to make it all work. I felt so lost. And she handed me your podcast, and she said, I think this would really help. And she had told me about your book, I think, years earlier, but it didn't register. Like, I just, like, it wasn't until she said that I remembered that she had told me about you years earlier.
It wasn't time.
Yeah, it wasn't time. Oh boy. So I went home and I listened to your podcast, and I was just like dumbfounded in the best possible way. I just I couldn't get enough of it. I was like, what? How come I didn't know this stuff? Like, what is going on? And I listened to, I reckon, 2 episodes every day religiously for like the next, few months. And then everything changed. Everything changed. I bought your book immediately and everything changed. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I could have my life back. It was so layered too, Laura, because of all the insecurities I was wrestling with, all the trauma. This brought me back to life. Like it literally brought me back to life. And I suddenly felt like empowered instead of a victim. But it took some wrestling. I had to wrestle a lot of things out, but it was wild, the transformation. Like I just can't even, I don't even know how to sum it up, but I'm going to try. So yeah.
Wow, amazing so far. I'm riveted to this story. You've done such a good job of explaining where you were emotionally, how devastated and empty and heartbroken and lost you felt, and how compounded that was by the way your husband was responding to you,
Mm-hmm.
like the distance, the porn, basically saying, yeah, I'm attracted to this other woman who's bubbly and positive and complimentary. So now you decide on your own that before you see the skills, before the intimacy skills, this is not, you don't want to go on like this. You want to change. And so now you've got the podcast and the book, and you've got some idea of the skills. Like, where did you start? What did you do first?
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, I dove in. I was just obsessed with everything. And I think I just started all of them all at once to the best of my ability, but it was a learning curve. Self-care was probably the biggest learning curve for me. What I realized when I started to do self-care was that, and I know a lot of women have said the same thing. I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what made me happy. And coming back to my paper didn't even exist. Like, it was the tiniest little dot. I didn't even know like what my paper was meant to look like, so, but what I realized when I started doing self-care is that this deep wound of abandonment and neglect that I had given myself, I've had trauma and all that stuff, but like I doubled down on that wound because I just didn't have the know-how to meet my own needs. So for years, I've had abandonment wounds and rejection wounds and all of that. But just to come to terms with the fact that I was compounding those wounds by suppressing and ignoring my needs and not showing up for myself. I think that was devastating, actually. It was, but also empowering all at the same time. I had to pick myself up and reparent myself. And then I realized that's why the connection skills with the kids weren't working, is because I needed to connect to me first. I needed to find me and reparent me before I could model that to anybody. And so just learning that self-care is actually a way back to this idea that I'm worthy. It just hit me one day where I realized, oh, what I have wanted and desired this whole time. It's not because I'm unworthy or I'm undeserving or I'm evil somehow, that I've done something wrong. It's just because I didn't have skills around cultivating what I wanted. And that was like a huge weight off my shoulders, that I could self-care my way to healing, to a life that I loved, that it would empower me to cultivate something beautiful. I mean, I went deep, Laura, on these skills. I was like re-knitting the fabric of my being back together, like rebuilding myself from the inside out. Because this was revolutionary for me. I just didn't know. I didn't know the power of taking care of yourself in order to be able to show up well in your life. And I remember having this like vision of a vessel who, like, the vessel was broken and it had holes all in it. And I remember seeing it and knowing, like, that's me. Like, I'm broken. There's holes all in my vessel. And as the water was being poured into the vessel, instead of being filled up, I was just leaking. And I just realized in that moment, my whole life I've been people pleasing, bending myself, like trying to find validation, trying to find worth in all these external things and in all these other relationships. And, you know, just realizing in that moment that was never going to satisfy. It was never going to fill me up. That I had to plug the holes, fill the gaps, tend to the vessel, heal it so that I could be fully filled up to overflowing, and then I could show up. And I realized, like, it's inhumane to expect anybody to be patient, kind, loving, a soft place to land. Like, it's inhumane to expect that of anybody if they're not, like, if their vessel is broken and they're not eating right, sleeping right, taking care, if they're not happy, if they're not being filled up, like, it's actually rude to expect that of anybody. And I had to, like, retrain my mind and take on a whole new paradigm, like Heidi, because I was so used to criticizing myself and saying, you're not doing enough. You've got to do more. Like, you're not, you know, you're not enough. You're not enough. That was the story. So now I'm reprogramming, like, oh my gosh, it's not that I'm not enough. It's that I'm broke. I need to tend to my needs. And then naturally I will be enough from a natural, like, just, you know, flow. So that was, self-care was revolutionary, but it took me a long time to learn how to show up for that. I tried all sorts of things, and there was a lot of frustration with it because things wouldn't stick for me for a long time. And I realized I was just dysregulated, in fight or flight mode, survival mode still. So my self-care, eventually I just started to make my self-care about regulating my nervous system and doing this kind of deeper work to create safety in myself. And that was like my self-care for a long time, until finally I felt like the vessel was healed and I could, like, start to experience joy and happiness in myself again around doing things that brought that, you know, that delight. So it's like just this layered process, but it rebuilt me.
Yeah. So this was less about frivolous fun. We talked about frivolous fun, and this was more kind of like remedial self-care, I guess you'd say, just to try to get yourself out of fight or flight.
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
Yeah. I've figured out a process that now I feel I'm just so grateful for. You know how you talk about, like, you need to like let your feelings have a day in the sun. Well, I took that concept and I was like, okay, if I'm going to reparent myself, then I need to, like, show myself empathy and grace first for how I'm feeling. And so I would just sit with my feelings. That was the first thing I started doing that actually started healing me. I I sat with my feelings and I was like, I just got really honest about how I was feeling. Like, I'm sad. I'm really, that anger, that rageaholic version of me was literally just masking an ocean of grief and sadness.
You see, opened that trunk from your time
Yes.
in Australia when you lost your granddad and your nan and me,
Yeah.
and and just let that grief have its day. Like,
Yeah.
let it come, let it rise. And then what happened?
Well, I found that it became this thing that I had to practice where I would sit with my feelings and I would feel what I needed to feel and I would offer myself empathy and I'd say, it's okay, Heidi, like you're allowed to feel these things. This is important and it's understandable. I think I became my own soft place to land and I just said, you like, this is so understandable that you feel these heavy feelings. Like, look at what you've been through. It's okay. Like, let's feel them. And I would try. So I was so used to being in needless emotional turmoil where you live in your head, right? You're like, it's all about the what ifs. It's anxiety. It's the past. It's the future. So what I was trying to train myself to do was come back into my body and feel the emotion so that I could retrain my mind to see the positive. So after I would sit with the emotion, I'd then think about, well, what's the need? Which is basically asking the question, how do I feel and what do I want? You know, what's the need under the emotion? I felt what I felt. Now, what do I want? And I think once I could like move into that productive, meeting the need, it was like this beautiful cycle of healing. And then I'd have to come back and feel the feeling again, because when you have an ocean of grief, that's not going to take just 5 minutes. That's months of doing the same thing, trusting the process, like feeling the feeling, moving into the what do I want, meet the need. And meeting the need was tricky. It took time to learn. So I tried lots of different things. But again, it was just self-care and becoming aware, like maybe I need to phone a friend and chat through something. Maybe I need to go for a walk and listen to a podcast. Maybe I need to dance and just move my body because I love dancing. Maybe I need to, I don't know, take a bath and just, sit and rest. Maybe I need to read a book and all of these, like, I just, I just tried a lot of different things until things started to stick. And that was my process, like feel the feelings and then meet the need, or how do I feel? What do I want? But that laid process of meeting the need and learning that like regulating my nervous system was part of my self-care was just revolutionary for me.
Yeah.
So
And so it had to be a pretty uncomfortable process,
mhm.
beginning at least.
It really was. It's so uncomfortable to sit with your feelings when you're used to living in your
Needless.
head.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And that's called dissociating, right? You're bypassing the process of just being present with yourself. So you're like constantly suppressing. And so when I finally came back into my body, it was like so uncomfortable, so wildly uncomfortable, but you just had to trust the process.
And you were doing this mostly alone, it sounds like.
I was, yeah, Laura, I was alone. There was a lot of, because I couldn't even go to my husband. Like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of duct tape and just like, go process, go do your thing, like go duct tape self-care. Cause I was still angry. And so obviously like the sadness was still a work in progress. And I did have a couple of friends that I could process with, but it was lonely. Like nobody was in the same process like I was that I had access to at the time. Um, and yeah, and it felt, I was very determined though.
Yeah, you were.
I
You
was
were
like, I'm
extraordinary.
gonna,
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Like to do that by yourself.
yeah,
It's hard to keep your optimism, I think,
Oh,
by
yeah.
yourself, right? So it
Yeah.
is extraordinary that it sounds enormously healing. Like it sounds like a brilliant way to heal and tend to yourself, not abandon yourself like you
Yeah.
described. But I also think it's just extraordinary to do solo. It seems like it almost seems impossible. You're proof that it's not,
Well,
but it
thank
almost seems
you.
impossible to do that by yourself.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I mean, I think I just got so motivated by the shifts I was seeing. It was like an adrenaline rush. I think I was high on adrenaline because the shifts were just amazing. But, I managed to do it on my own probably for like a year. And I was like high on life from this empowerment and the shifts. And there were rocky times. There was, I was a mess sometimes. I felt like a fetus, or I felt like I'd been given a plane and someone's like, here, fly this. And I'm like, how do I do that? But I just kept trusting the process. Um, and I think just the change that I saw in my relationship with my husband was too good. It was just too good. I was like, I'm all in. Like, I can't ever look back.
What,
Um,
what was it? What was different?
oh, well, he just started, he just started being so soft and emotionally like very present with me, which was wild after years of feeling like he just avoided me all the time, just didn't want to be in the same room with me sometimes. He was a good, he would be in the same room with me, but the energy was not there. Whereas suddenly I'm seeing this energy from him that he wants to be close to me. He wants to lean in, and he started kissing me and hugging me like he was passionate about me, which was new for me. Hadn't happened in a long time. Because I used to say, like, I just want you to want me. I want to be desired. Because I would feel so, yeah, just like it felt like a performance. It felt like just a performance. Suddenly there was this realness to his kisses and his hugs and his warmth. And yeah, uh, physical intimacy just kind of like went from this painful robotic experience. Not that it was painful, but just for me, emotionally painful because I felt so undesired, to this new exciting thing that I was like, not even sure what to do with myself about it. I had to learn how to be confident in this area now because it was real. It was real. I don't know how to describe that, but
You
suddenly,
wanted you. It was not just mechanical.
yeah,
It was,
yeah,
you felt desired.
yeah, I felt
You wanted.
desired. Yes. And then he just started engaging more. It was a whirlwind. Like we were trying to buy a house and renovate. We were living with some friends at the time, right when I started diving in as we were trying to get our house ready. And so there was a lot of stuff that just in the bad old days, it just would have been the perfect environment for massive blow ups and just cold shoulders and disconnection. But I just felt like we were a team, after not feeling that way for so long. And
All this from like just being present for yourself, being present,
yeah,
feeling the
well,
feelings the day in the sun.
yeah. And I did like try all the other skills as well. I kind of just tried everything all at once. So I think he started feeling respected right away too. Like I mean, I had a lot to learn, but I think because it was so bad before, those little changes that I was making were enough to just inspire him with his own, you know, reflection of that. And yeah. So it was still precarious. Yeah. Sorry, you
How
go.
did you do to be respectful? Like, how did you show him?
I honestly, I think I duct taped to first. I just stopped talking. I was so all about being right. I know I just heard someone on your podcast the other day and she said she was married to righteousness. I was like, yes, me too. Like just think everything had to be a certain way. I was a perfectionist because I was running away from myself all the time and I was trying to just control everything around me, and I just would insert my opinion on everything and he had to do everything a certain way. I didn't feel loved unless he loved me this particular way, and even then he never could do it right. And I I was so, just helpful. Oh, like all the time with everything. And I thought I knew best. I really did. I had a superiority complex for sure. I was spiritually more aware than him, emotionally more advanced. I knew more about parenting. I knew more about non-tox living. I was like,
You're not addicted to porn, right?
yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was really just me running away from my own pain and insecurities, trying to like, I don't know, just trying to feel like I had something to contribute and that I was valuable. I was searching for validation and worth by constantly trying to prove myself. And if I could prove myself and prove him wrong at the same time, somehow that felt powerful. So just, I was in competition with my husband all the time. I will never forget, I was listening to one of the men that came on your podcast, and he said, when I get home, I want to be able to take off my armor and put down my weapons. I don't want to have to carry all of that into my home and keep fighting. Like, I want to be able to take all that stuff off and leave it at the door, because I do that at work. I've got my armor on. I've got my weapons out. I'm like, and when he said that, it just clicked so deeply for me how being that emotionally safe, soft place to land for my husband meant that he could thrive, he could breathe, he could just be himself. So I think that was a big thing, just duct taping and giving him space, letting him have his own thoughts, his own process. That was probably the first most effective thing I did to respect him. And then I definitely started apologizing, but it was so awkward. It probably took me a little longer to start apologizing, but it was just, yeah, I felt like a block of cheese on a cheese grater. Like,
Okay.
I know some people say they felt like sand in their mouth. Well, I felt like I was being grated down. I was like, oh my gosh, how vulnerable, how humiliating. Like, here I am, I'm apologizing. And I was still wrestling with this, feeling of like just insecurity, and that vulnerability was hard. Apologizing is hard when you've been wearing armor your whole life and in survival mode your whole life. I I wanted to protect myself. I was hypervigilant for a reason. And here I was,
Yes.
like,
Yes. Yeah.
like that was hard, but I did it, and I probably fumbled through it. I think I texted him maybe first. I don't even think I said it verbally. And then when I did apologize, it was like so awkward. But
What did you apologize for?
I can't even remember. This was like, it's been 3 years, and so I think it was just about being controlling and about yell. Actually, I probably apologized for my anger because I was so rageful.
Yeah.
And during this process, I felt like, how they have AA meetings and they're like, oh, it's been 5 days since I've had a drink. I felt like that with my rage. It's been, 3 days since I've raged. So I was apologizing for yelling a lot because I still was learning how to break that cycle with the skills. So that was probably the biggest thing. Just, I'm sorry for being so rude with how I talk to you. And disrespecting you with my words. I apologize for demanding things of him, demanding that he love me a certain way. And I said, like, I just want you to be able to love me the way that you want to love me. And I'm sorry I haven't received that, you know? So, and I think it just took time because it's a lot to start looking at yourself in the mirror and coming back onto your paper and realizing, like, oh, there's so much to be accountable for that
Yeah.
like it just took time to go through that, and things would come up and I'd be like, oh, I need to apologize for that too. And yeah, and he responded so well to that. Like that was beautiful, that process, you know. I think it just kept motivating me. And now it's like apologizing is my most favorite thing. I'll still get a little prickly about it, but I'm like, and actually I'll say to myself, don't say that, Heidi, because you're just going to have to apologize for it later. Like just
You
don't
can
do
catch
it.
yourself on the front end instead of
Yeah.
seeing it in the rearview mirror now. So,
Yeah.
so it's beautiful. That's your favoriteest thing. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. It's pretty good with
I
apologizing for
mean,
me.
it's just so motivating. Yeah.
It creates a great outcome.
Like
Yeah.
the other day I came into his office because he had said, it was, we were coming up to Father's Day and we were like, what do you want? And he said, oh, haven't you been picking up on the hints I've been sharing for the last 5 years as a joke? And I was like, ha ha ha. But then this wound popped up like, well, what about all the hints I've been sharing for the last, 10 years, just this silly little old wound. And so I made a comment. I'm like, well, have you remembered all the things that I've said? And we were kind of joking and bantering, but I knew deep down inside that was my fear talking. And he's like, oh, like the house that I've bought you and the renovations and all the, and I kind of like was like, well, yeah. I was sort of like, oh, and then he said, and then I was like, well, what about the other things, And he was like, he started rattling things up. Oh, the vintage watch you want. Oh, and I was blown away that he remembered. It sort of backfired on me, this silly thing, this dance that I was doing. And anyway, I thought about it later and I was like, I'm going to march myself into his office and deeply apologize for that. And I just came up to him and I started crying. And I said, because I'd sat with it and I'd gone, oh my gosh, like, he is my hero. Look at this house that he's made my dreams come true. And I've already said that to him and I already knew that, but just this wound came up and I just had to sit with it again and go back to that place of gratitude. And so I came in and I was like, I started crying and I said, I'm so sorry I made that conversation about me the other day and I just turned it into something. I tried to blame you, an old wound popped up and I'm just sorry. You have made my dreams come true and this house is beautiful. And, I cried and I apologized and he stood up and he just embraced me in a big bear hug. And he just said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's okay. And you're so sweet. And it was just this beautiful moment. Wow. And that's the level of accountability that I'm like, this is what I want to be. This is who I want to be,
Extraordinary. Yeah. Amazing accountability, Heidi. I love that story. And I love how he responded so tenderly. It sounds like there's a lot of emotional safety at your house, that's the culture. Was there a moment when you thought, aha, these skills are working, like, because you got a particular response from him?
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually early on because the transformation was pretty wild for us. I also jumped into gratitudes really quickly, which just for him, it was like it lit him up. And so I think the combination of respect and gratitudes was enough for him to just feel deeply, deeply moved, I guess, by this effort I was making. And I remember he took me on a little day date and we hadn't gone on a date in so long. And all I ever wanted was to go on dates with him. And he did it during the day, which was huge for me, because part of the story for me was that he never prioritized me over his work or over anything else. So he took time out of his work day and he said, let's go for a walk. And he took me to this beautiful place where we went for this walk, and he held my hand and he started crying. And he just said, I just never thought this was possible. I never thought I could have the kind of marriage that we now have with you. He was like, I never thought that we'd have this connection. And then he said, I just feel like I've been given a second chance of a happy marriage. And he had tears streaming down his face. And I was crying and I was like, oh my gosh, these skills. I knew like, this is it. Like, never looking back. This is working. This is everything we've ever needed. It felt like we could breathe again. Yeah, that was a beautiful moment.
Glorious moment. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done. And
Yeah.
what about your two kids? You have a girl and a boy.
Yeah.
How has it impacted them that you?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a wild ride. I'm still healing wounds with them that were created when I was in my lowest of lows, raging, disconnected. But I feel so empowered. I feel like I have the tools to do what I need to do in that regard. And I also have learned how to surrender and let go of the fact that back then I just didn't know what I didn't know, and that's okay, and that they're going to be okay, because I had a lot of turmoil around what have I done when I started to come back to myself and look at myself in the mirror. But what I love is that more often than not, on a regular, consistent basis, they get a calm, peaceful environment, a calm mum who's not controlling and who is respectful and wants them to have their autonomy, wants them to, figure things out, and she trusts them, and there's deep connection and emotional safety between all the members of our family. And I still see, it's amazing how your kids are a mirror. I still see behavior from them and things from them that remind me of the patterns that I used to, show up in. But what I've learned is that if I use the skills in that scenario too, and instead of focusing on that and feeling like I've damaged them or I've set them up in these dysfunctional patterns, I look at what I'm grateful for, and I search for evidence of all the good work and all the good things that have happened. And immediately I feel like I can move out of that place of turmoil back into that empowered place. And so it's still a process for me, but essentially there's this grace and there's this freedom for everybody to make mistakes. There's this sense of like, we're going to think the best of each other. And my kids, honestly, when we were fighting all the time and I was raging, they were so dysregulated. They were so in survival mode themselves.
They're stressed out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so to see them now in this regulated, just peaceful state of being. I mean, they're kids, they fight, they still have their moments, but
Sure.
I can just see the baseline is now that regulated state of being, just that we're not in survival mode anymore. And they're thriving. They're the most amazing kids. They have their own opinions and thoughts. They feel confident in who they are. They're not afraid to, work things out and make mistakes, because I was a perfectionist and I used to like suppress them and minimize their experience. And I just feel like they're flourishing and they're thriving in this new environment where it's respectful and everybody has a soft place to land. So it's kind of wild. Like, yeah. And my daughter feels safe to come to me and feel her feelings, which is huge.
That's huge.
There's emotional safety for her because she's been through a lot with her niece, with her cousin dying, and me not knowing how to handle that. Like, I remember we went through a phase where she started tantruming like a lot after I was learning the skills and creating the safety. And I just had to tell myself that this is good because it means that she feels safe. She's getting the emotions out. She'd been suppressing for so long. So the tantrum was actually really good feedback for me, that I'm a safe container now. This is a safe home. She's able to express and figure some stuff out. So that was cool. That was a moment where I knew, oh, we're healing now. We're like, this is really, the foundations have been built and things are healing.
Yeah, because a tantrum can be very it's terrifying as a parent, right? Like, how do I make this stop? I can't control her. This is not socially acceptable, and it's not good for her. But this was not, like, to you, that's a surrender right there. That's a spirit of surrender. Like, she's tantruming, and right? That sounds like a superpower. Super momming right there.
Thank you. Yeah, it was hard, but surrender is the right word for it. And just recently too, I was inspired by one of your other guests on your podcast around letting go of more control. I used to have this routine with the kids, and it was all good intentions, and I was trying to do it with connection, but I could not show up in a way that wasn't controlling with this routine, no matter how hard I tried. And for years this had gone on. It was all their chores and like just the things they had to get done in the morning before they went to school and different things. And it just, no matter how hard I tried to like be relinquishing control and surrendered, but still have this structure, it just, for some reason for me, maybe somebody else would have been able to do that, but I couldn't.
Maybe.
I just couldn't. Yeah. And instead of going, well, try harder, Heidi, which I had been doing for years, I was like, you know what? Maybe you just need to surrender this and try a different approach and stop beating yourself up that you can't somehow figure this out. And I just felt permission to let go. I threw the routine in the trash, and I apologized to the kids. I said, I'm so sorry for being controlling with this. I trust you. I trust that you're going to do what you need to do to get yourself ready and to contribute to what you need to contribute. Like, they have animals. I said, I trust that you're going to take care of your animals, and it's going to be on your time, in your way. I'm not going to manage this anymore. And if you need help, come ask for help, but like, you've got this. And the relief on their faces, like, I did it separately for both my daughter and my son. Both of them melted. The relief, like, they just smiled and they were like, thank you so much. They gave me a big hug, and you could just feel the stress and the pressure melting away from this controlling thing that I just couldn't figure out. And that was huge. And that was only recently, like, I'm still figuring this stuff out, but
sure,
that was a big shift for my kids, for sure.
That is a great story. I love hearing that. And is it too soon to know if, like, they fed the animals and did the things they were supposed to do, or?
Yeah. No, it's been amazing. Like, it's actually been really cool to see their intentionality around things, and they've been thriving. And they're like, I'm also giving them permission to be human and forget and make mistakes, and not to jump on them, and just to like let natural consequences happen, and me to just be an empathetic, nurturing mum in the background. Like, hey, you've got this. yeah, that sucked. You forgot to do that. That's okay though. You've got this. Like, we're all good. Just this, I don't know, this different energy around it. And they've been amazing. Like, just the other day, instead of using routine to get things done, I just said, I would love the trash taken out. And they jumped on it. They both took the trash out for me. And I'm like,
Wait a minute.
yeah.
How old are these kids?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of wild. And they don't do that. There are times where, because I've told them, like, you can always say no, I just don't want to be controlling. And there are times where they don't want to borrow it because they're kids, and they'll say, no, not right now, I'm busy. But what I've done is I've said, if we need to go somewhere and I've got all these things I've got to do before we leave, I'll just tell them, hey, like, I just got to get this stuff finished before we leave. If you want to help, you're more than welcome to help. Maybe we'll get it done faster together. And there's just a different energy around it. So they know, like, if there's this schedule that we're trying to, like, and they're excited about getting out the door, then they're going to jump in and help. And I'll take it. I'll receive it. Even if it, on another day where we're not so busy, they're not jumping in and doing it. That's okay too, because it's a slow day. It's peaceful. It's fine. And I think too, I've just gotten better at being okay living with things
A little messy.
and just messy. Like,
yeah, not perfect. Yeah.
I mean, it's just so freeing. It's so freeing to be happy and not be so paranoid and stressed and anal retentive about all the things all the time. Like, so yeah.
That's awesome. No, it sounds like a wonderful home environment there. Like, it sounds really, like there's trust and there's connection and there's smiles.
Yeah.
That's really the family life I think everybody dreams of, right? That's how you want your mothering experience to be, not the other one, right? Where there's a lot of stress and tension.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's go back to your marriage for a second. So what is your marriage like now? You've been practicing skills for 3 years. You've done an incredible job.
Yeah.
What's your marriage like now?
Yeah, it's dreamy. Yeah, it's so dreamy. My husband makes me a chai tea every morning, and if I feel like sleeping in, he'll bring it to bed for me. I am greeted usually with scrambled eggs in the morning too. He cooks and he cleans the kitchen. He works really hard to provide for our family. He's out of work right now, but he's like ridiculously diligent with still keeping the plates spinning. He, is constantly looking for ways to make my dreams come true. Like the last year, I was like, I'd love to go to Spain. I'd love to go to Europe. And he financially couldn't make it work where we all went. So he sent me by myself. And he was like, I want you to have 10 days by yourself in Spain. And I got to have this beautiful, like, holiday. And it just blows me away. Just his willingness, and he's just constantly emotionally, like, checking in with me. It's just wild. This man that used to be so avoidant, he's like so intrigued by where I'm at, how I'm feeling, what's happening for me, like very in tune, very attentive.
Same guy?
Yeah, I know. If I'm having a bad day, he's like, what do you need? How can I help you? Like, he's just so attentive. It's honestly, I've had to learn how to receive because it just keeps coming. And like, he's so, willing to do everything for me. It's beautiful. And the other side of it is that we are crazy playful and flirty. Okay. Like, the playfulness was nowhere to be seen. It was while we were dating, but then when we got married, I mean, we had moments of it, but just slowly and surely it just dwindled to where there was just nothing but numbness, like I was mentioning. So to have this banter, this playfulness, this flirtiness, like he can't keep his hands off me. If I'm doing something in the kitchen, he'll come up and grab my boobs and give me a kiss. And it's like the best thing ever. I feel so desired. I feel like he wants me. Our sex life is amazing. I mean, the intimacy is insane. It feels like we're dating, but even better than what it was when we were dating. Uh, he he wants me. He desires me. He compliments me, which was something that I never got back in the bad old days. And I would beg, like, tell me that you think I'm beautiful. Like, please, I just need to hear you say it. And then he'd say it, and then I'd be like, oh, it doesn't work because I told you to say it.
Yeah. I remember
Like,
those days.
yeah.
It does sound dreamy. It's playful and it's passionate. You feel really taken care of and desired
I
and
do.
special.
I do. I do. Like, I remember when it was still kind of fresh, the skills, we went out to dinner with my parents because they were visiting us. And he sent me a text while we were sitting at the dinner table together at this restaurant. You're so beautiful. And just stuff like that, where that never would have happened in the bad old days. Um, yeah. And I'm smiling a lot more. I'm happy. I'm, you know, taking care of me. I'm accountable, and he loves it when I smile. Like he'll do anything to get me to smile. So if I'm prickly one day, because I'm human,
Sure.
he'll just do anything he can to like make me laugh. And I do now, because it feels so easy now to move from that prickly feeling into this just joyful, safe place where I know everything's good. And so his efforts to make me laugh, like, immediately they work for me. Whereas
They work.
in
They
the
work.
past, yeah, in the past I would have been like, no, I'm staying grumpy. So
Yeah, exactly. Be committed to my misery here. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What do you think you would tell another woman who is where you were? Like she feels like her husband is avoidant, he's emotionally distant. She's tried begging and asking and pleading, and you know, she's done everything she can to get his attention, but it's not happening. And she, and she feels pretty hopeless about it, and she's sad. And she wants what you have, where she gets a chai latte every single morning and a text while you're sitting at the table, you know, with your parents, telling you how beautiful you are and like hot sex and all the things, right? So, what's your tip for her?
Yeah, I think I would tell her what I said before, that it's not because she's unworthy that she's stuck in this place. It's not because she did something wrong or she doesn't measure up. It's because she just doesn't have access to skills and tools that could actually help her cultivate what she wants. And I think I would just start by giving her a big hug and saying, you know, like, I get it. I've been where you've been and it's hard. And then I would say, resource yourself. Like, don't try and do this the same way that you've always done it on your own, you know, kind of banging your head against a brick wall. Like, resource yourself with these skills and know that, you know, you have everything you need to cultivate what you want. It's right there. It's right there. It's just like being able to shift your paradigm and try a different way. So yeah, I would give her the book, I'd give her the podcast, and I would just reassure her, like, you've got this. And then I would probably share with her my little process. If she's feeling like I was feeling, like dysregulated and so hopeless and depressed, I would be like, okay, when you go to self-care, like first feel your feelings and start to like own, this tender part of yourself, and start to like give yourself a hug in those messy, dark feelings and tell yourself that you're loved and you're okay and it's understandable. And then go and meet the need and do self-care. And I would say it's okay if it doesn't feel like it works at first, that it's a process. And sometimes you've got to go on a bit of a journey with it because your paper's so small and you don't know what you want and what you love. And so it's okay that it takes time. It takes time for the paper to grow. And a manicure might sound good, but maybe it's stressful like it was for me. So maybe scratch that off the list and try something else and just keep trying until you find your way. And I would tell her to start there for sure.
That's beautiful. And what do you think you'd say to Heidi if you could go back in time and tell her what you know now?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, I'll give her a big hug as well. And I would tell her that that's a hard one. I think because I would just tell her that I've got you. I think that's what I would say. I would give her a big hug and I would say, I've got you. I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm your best friend. I'm your advocate. And I've got you. So if you just come back to yourself and trust yourself and know that you are a wonderful person, that you've got what it takes, and that you're going to, as you find yourself and trust yourself, you're going to get to where you want to be. And I would tell her that fear and control, the two sides of the same coin, they never, ever lead to love, never lead to the fruit that you want. Surrender and connection will take you there. Yeah.
So it's a wisdom bomb right there. I love that. Fear and control never leads to love. It's never going to get you where you want to go. And it's, I just hear a theme of you feeling so much more confident now than you used to. And so that's a big side effect of practicing these skills, which it's exciting to see. It's awesome to see, right? Like how cool that you could make yourself confident. Like who does that, right? And I also I want to congratulate you and give you my best wife award rather. Yay! Congratulations. You definitely deserve this. You took a marriage that was struggling, broken, nearly, had some real breakdowns, very close. And instead of having your family blown apart or just continue to live estranged and in that sadness, you've made it warm and wonderful at your house. You've made it intimate and playful and passionate and trusting. The kids feel safe.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything I admire more than this big accomplishment that you have created. Well done.
Thank you so much, Laura. I so appreciate it. I'm grateful for you.
Well, I'm grateful for you too, telling your story today so vulnerably, so authentically, and for inspiring us all and helping to end world divorce. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For more of the proven secrets on how to make your marriage playful and passionate without his conscious effort, check this out.